So everyone faces fears, but have you ever faced a fear that overwhelms you? I'm talking about the kind of fear that makes you question everything that you believe. Well, my name is Chris, and I'm 35 years old, and about 2 months ago, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. Fortunately, it was found to be cancerous. So it was a pretty scary diagnosis. It was quite overwhelming, and we were really in shock. It was, one day, life was normal. We felt fairly invincible, and the next day you find out that you got brain cancer. So it was quite a lot to take in.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere, blindsided us. I think Chris has been healthy all of our lives, and one day he came home from work and was having some vision problems, and after a trip to an ER, that's when we found out that night that he had a tumor about the size of a golf ball, and it was in the center of his brain. So it was a scary time for us. It was we were hearing a lot of scary things about operations to try to get into that center of his brain, and it was definitely something that we never expected to face.
So the first brain surgery was scheduled only a day and a half later. The tumor was causing a swelling in the brain, and so it was something they had to correct very quickly because it was a fatal condition. And so we wheeled into the OR, didn't have much time to think about it, but we were in shock. I was terribly scared. After all, they were going to be messing around in my head. But we got through it. Unfortunately, the first surgery did not correct the swelling in the brain.
So after Chris was admitted to the hospital that first night, his brother Matt set up a Facebook group for us so that we could keep everybody informed about his health status and how things were going, and post specific things that we needed prayer and help with. And so the first surgery happened and it wasn't successful, and the surgeon said there was a possibility, a very slim possibility, that the pressure in his head could resolve itself, and a second surgery wouldn't be necessary or could be postponed. And so we used that Facebook group as a huge support during that time. It was really a lot of uncertainty, and we were able to post specifically what we needed prayer for, and ask people to pray specifically that his pressure would resolve itself. And the day he was supposed to go down for the second surgery, he actually was wheeled into the OR, and they pumped him full of the medicines, and we're waiting for that final measurement on his pressure in his head, and it came back, and the doctor was looking at the little tube thing for quite a long time, and he said, "Well, I don't know how to explain this. Do you believe in the power of prayer?" And long story short, the pressure had resolved itself, and so they took him back out of the OR, and he didn't have to have the surgery that day, which was a huge blessing because it meant that it would reduce the risk of infection.
But the pressure did come back later on, and I had the worst headaches of my life. It was really, really bad. In fact, all the pain meds at the hospital didn't do anything for it. It was not a happy time. They scheduled the follow-on surgery that very next day after those headaches, and this time they were successfully able to relieve the pressure in my head, and there were no complications from either of those surgeries. We really thank God for carrying us through those 2 brain surgeries.
Yeah, and the support that we got during that whole time in the hospital, we went in thinking Chris was just having a migraine, and then we didn't leave the hospital for 14 days after that. And during that time he had the 2 surgeries, but we just had an amazing amount of support from people at Gateway, from friends at work, from family, and it just was an amazing time of seeing how much God could love us through other people.
So it was great that those 2 surgeries went so well, but the problem is I still had the tumor inside my head. And so a 3rd surgery was needed to remove the tumor itself. It was a pretty risky surgery. The tumor itself was about 1 inch in size, and it was a very rare tumor. About 1 person in the U.S. each year is diagnosed with this type of tumor. So they had to go in and remove it, and then follow on radiation and chemo treatment following the surgery.
So I think leading into that operation to remove the tumor was probably one of the scariest times for us during this whole journey. It was a major surgery where they, were going to have to open up Chris's brain and get at the tumor, and it was in a very delicate area of the brain, and so we had conversations that we never thought we would have about the uncertainty of our future and things like that, but really God definitely carried us through day by day. We had to just ask God for the grace to get through today, and that's the way we approached that time in our lives. And he came through the surgery, and it was amazing, his recovery. He was out of the hospital 2 days after that operation, and 3 days afterwards we were walking around in a park and it was incredible.
Yeah, the surgery was very risky. They said there's a 5% chance of death. 95% chances of surviving is pretty good, but a 1 in 20 chance of dying was not very comforting. There's also risks of stroke, which wouldn't cause death, but I wouldn't have been the same Chris. And there's plenty of other risks as well. When they take a piece of your skull off and get in your head, it's a bit frightening. And they scheduled the surgery a month out, so that gave us a lot of time to really steep in fear.
But through it all, we had just an amazing support network of people praying for us. There was a prayer service at Gateway that was just, amazing to have the church come around us and support us. And we had, people we didn't even know praying for us. I got a card in the mail just the other day from a woman from a church in Texas who knows my mom's cousin, and she wanted me to know that her whole church was praying for us. And it's just been incredible, the amount of outpouring of support that we've gotten. And Chris has said before, not to steal your thunder, but he said one of the things that Pastor Matt has said to us that we have gotten comfort from time to time is that sometimes you have to borrow the faith of others, and we've definitely borrowed on a lot of people's faith through this process.
Yeah, it was amazing. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals around the country praying for me. There's churches, Bible studies, small groups, lots of people we didn't even know. In fact, I even heard up in Michigan that my story was on a radio station asking people to pray. It was quite humbling that so many people care that much, even people that don't know me, to pray for me. So Romans 8:28 says, "For God works everything together for the good of those that love God." And I gotta say, in the middle of this circumstance, sometimes that can be hard to believe. But at the same time, we have started to see a lot of good things come out of this.
We've seen an enormous amount of blessings during this ordeal. I don't think I'm to the point yet where I'm ready to say I'm glad that Chris has this tumor, but at the same time, the amount of love that we've seen and that we've experienced from our friends and our family and our church, and some healing in our own marriage and the ability to come together as a team is something that this experience has brought about, and God has worked amazing things in our life, I feel like, going through this together. And also, we've just also really learned what people need when they're in times of crisis, and I feel like we'll be better equipped to help other people when they're going through difficult times now that we have experienced this and have seen the love that we've been shown. We know how to turn it back to other people now, and it's been a great gift that God has given us.
And we also see life differently too. I met a guy recently who has terminal liver cancer, and the way he puts it is that he's living life in high definition. And what he means by that is every moment that he experiences, he appreciates that much more because he knows his time's limited. And it could be as simple as reading a story to his son at night, or seeing the spring day and enjoying the sunshine and the trees and the flowers. And I gotta say, I can relate to that. My condition is not terminal, but there's been a lot of questions about life since this has come up. And it's really caused me to really appreciate what we have that much more. And that's something that I can certainly be thankful for, and I gotta believe it's gonna stay with me for the rest of my life.
It's a great gift we can give our daughter to be able to really appreciate that time that we have together with her and make the most of all of those moments.
So I gotta say, I hate character building experiences. They are never fun. But through this experience, this character building experience, we have learned a couple of things so far. Number one, we've learned that trusting God is a day-by-day activity. I really wish that trusting God meant He'd send a doctor in that would tell us everything that was going to happen over the next year and tell us that it was going to be okay. But that's not how it works. In fact, I learned that trust is really the opposite of answers. If we had all the answers, we really wouldn't need to trust in God because we knew what was going to happen. So I don't know what the future holds for this coming year. But what I do each day is I get up and I ask God to carry me through that day. Don't get me wrong, I still have times of fear. But I have a lot more peace now that I'm looking to God for that day and that day only to carry me through. It's really made a big difference. And trusting God on a daily basis, I think, is really what you need to do when you're in a crisis.
And He's been faithful every day. We've had the grace that we've needed and the support that we've needed to get through that day.
I've survived 3 brain surgeries now without major complications, so I really praise God for doing that. When someone's going through a trial or a health issue, it's really easy to say you're sorry about their pain and then to quickly send them on to the experts, whether the experts be a doctor or a counselor or a local pastor. But what we found is we need the experts. I need them in my life. But maybe equally as important is the community support that we've received. We were just overwhelmed with the number of people that actually wanted to come and help us. We've had people come mow our lawn. We've had people bring us tons of food, bringing us meals. And some of them even thought it was an insignificant gesture compared to what we were going through. But on the contrary, it really meant a lot. It met a physical need that we had, and it was just a way that for them to show that they were supporting us, and it really did mean a lot. We've had people come together and buy our daughter a swing set that we could no longer buy. It was just amazing.
Just the outpouring of love that we have been able to receive has been something that's shown me the character of God. I feel like more than I understood before going through this experience. We've just been blessed by people who want to take care of us and want to help us through this, and people that we didn't even know before this experience have come around us and supported us and been there, like Chris said, with practical things like helping us take care of Macy while we're in doctor's appointments and at the hospital, and just everyday things that make such a big difference to us. And it's just taught us so much about how God wants to bless us in small ways and big ways, and how we have learned how to bless other people now that we've gone through this experience too.
And my family is all based up in Michigan, and they've now come down a couple occasions to come and support us through the surgeries. My sisters, my parents have all come down, and it's really been a big support for us to have someone there with us family. And like Jenny said, we've had people that we don't even know come support us. There's people from my work and from Gateway Church that volunteered to help build that swing set. And there was a couple people from Gateway that, to be honest, I hadn't really met before. And yet they knew we had a need and came out to help build the swing set. There's a lot of physical labor. We sure appreciate that support, and it was just amazing. So our small group leader at Gateway Church is in the Army. And when this all first started, he came and he gave me this cross. He's been on a couple tours in Iraq, and both times he took this cross with him and carried it with him when he was downrange and held on to it in the battles. And so he gave it to me now that I'm facing my own battle. There was a second gentleman who actually lives in England, and he also brought me a cross. He came into the States, he brought this to me. And this cross has actually, since the 1930s, been handed down to different people that are suffering so that they could hold on to it for comfort. So these two crosses, of course, represent Christ and what he did for us and how much he loves us. But to me, they also represent what a couple people in our community did for me to help bring me peace and comfort. And it represents to me the power of the community in our life and in our situation today.
Yeah, I think it's become more clear to me through this process how God uses us to help each other. We're the way that God can show his love to people who are hurting, and we've been the recipients of that.
So I don't know what the future holds, and there's a lot of tough questions that plague me. Will I be able to walk my daughter down the aisle in 20 years or maybe 40 years? Will I be able to support my family financially and spiritually? Will I be able to even enjoy the summer weather this summer? And splash in the pool with my wife and daughter? We just don't know. But I look to God to carry me through each day, and when I think about the day, God brings me some peace. I also look to the support of our family and our friends in the community as they continue to support us and encourage us and help give us faith that God is there and is carrying us day by day.
The one thing that I take away from this experience is that God has proven that he's good even when our circumstances don't seem like they are.
So I still have a journey ahead of me. I'm about to start a 6-week radiation treatment and then a full year of chemotherapy. It's not going to be fun. There are risks involved, but I think we're over the hump with the surgeries. And now we're looking to God to carry us through this coming year. And I guess I'd ask you to also pray for us, that God would be there each day when I wake up, and that he would carry us through that day.